Hello, my name is Sam Wyatt, and today I'll be talking about the evolution of non-traditional landscape photography. In the historical exploration of landscape photography, many artists have strayed away from the Ansel Adams realist style of rendering their subjects in favor of a more non-traditional and experimental approach. This approach, either through analog or technological methods, has expanded the breadth of possibilities for visualizing the natural world while simultaneously calling attention to its need for preservation. The first photograph ever taken, View from the Window at Le Gras by Nicephore Nice, shot in 1826, shows his empty courtside estate. This is because the exposure was over 8 hours long, so no people could be rendered. This photograph laid the grounds for exploration in landscape photography. Later, artists would take advantage and experiment with this new medium of photography, like Gustave Le Gray with Brig on the Water, shot in 1856. The invention would also open the door for travel landscape photographers, like Maxime Duchamp with his Egypte Nubie Palestine et Syrie, shot in 1852, which was the first photo book ever published in France. To create it, Duchamp explored the Mediterranean and North Africa in order to exploit photography's uncontestable exactitude. Because it was the first, this book had a tremendous effect on how the public viewed documenting the landscape. As photography evolved as an art form, so did the depiction and presentation of landscapes. In the early 1900s, a photographic group named F64 placed themselves in direct opposition to the pictorial renderings of portrait subjects and pioneered something called straight photography. Photographer and notable member of F64, Ansel Adams, is well known for his images of Yosemite and the way he portrayed dramatic landscapes. He rendered his images sharp from edge to edge, in very good contrast and exposure with his development of the zone system, a scientific tool used to calculate the perfect exposure and showcase the dynamic range that only exists in our eyes. Other photographers fought against this straight photography style of rendering the landscape natural and beautiful. In the 1970s, a collection of photographers, most notable are Robert Adams, Louis Baltz, and Stephen Shore, held a groundbreaking exhibition in New York, focused on documenting undeniably human landscapes. This exhibition, called New Topographics, Photographs of a Man-Altered Landscape, shows photos of what we may consider regular mundane things like suburbs or trailer parks to create a conceptual approach to contemporary landscape photography. In the 80s and 90s, other photographers took landscape photography to the abstract, using their technical and compositional skills to create intriguing depictions that render landscapes in a more pictorial and sometimes geometric way. Photographs from Seascapes by Hiroshi Sugimoto are strictly a collection of photos where the sky and the sea meet. These photographs show nothing more than water and air, often creating a harsh line in the middle, emphasizing the universal human experience. Hiroshi writes, "A sharp horizon line and a cloudless sky. Here begin my consciousness. From there my thoughts race to the origins of human consciousness itself. The sea reminds me that within my blood remain traces of human evolution over hundreds of thousands of years." In a different way, photographers like Cody Cobb abstract the landscape through the use of new technology like 3D scanning, ultraviolet, iridescent light, and photographic manipulation to create his otherworldly abstractions. Cody's images create an ethereal yet poised view of the natural landscape, representing it as tranquil yet desolate. Other photographers decide to experiment showcasing the landscape through strictly analog techniques. One of my favorite photographers who does this is Richard Moss with his Infra series of pink-covered landscapes. Now, Richard Moss did this with the use of the now defunct film Kodak Aerochrome, which rendered greens as pinks. This film was originally created for aerial surveillance purposes, so when flying over different landscapes, man-made objects and people would be easier to spot because of the contrast of color. Richard Moss uses this effect to his advantage, beautifully showcasing the Democratic Republic of Congo during war. Paired with these landscapes are the heartbreaking portraits of young child soldiers. This is an amazing project, and I implore you to look into the rest of the work, as well as watch the movie Beasts of No Nation, which has scenes inspired by this infra project. One of my other favorite photographers, known for his experimentation with analog landscapes, is Matthew Brandt. His project, Lakes and Reservoirs, is really interesting in the context of analog experimentation because Matthew decides to bring the landscape into his development process. In his photos of lakes and reservoirs, Matthew decides to take a sample, a jug of water from the lake or reservoir home, and develop his negative in the water from that lake or reservoir. Most of the time, this results in a very interesting abstract layered image that almost looks like it was set on fire. Fun fact, the first photo book I purchased in high school was actually a signed edition of this project. Now, opposing the practice of purely analog experimentation in landscape photography, there's also technological experimentation. Photographer Milan Radiskas, in his project Water Shapes Earth, uses aerial photography to show these beautiful abstracted views of the evolution of Earth's waterways. This project also covers the scarcity of water and the idea of destruction that will be caused when the water retreats. Another photographer who I think uses technological experimentation to his advantage is the photographer Ruben Wu. Ruben is well known in the drone photography space not because he uses his drones to achieve an impossible vantage point, but because he uses them to light his subjects. Ruben shoots a lot in the desert, where artificial light is scarce, so he uses these drones to draw long exposure light trails and cast light on his subjects in a very brilliant way. From analog experimentation to digital innovation, these photographers have expanded the language of landscape photography, proving that the medium is far from static. By challenging traditional representations of nature, they invite us to see the world in unique and interesting ways, and in doing so, remind us of its fragility. In an era of climate crisis and environmental destruction, perhaps this is the most important role of landscape photography. Not just to document, but to inspire reflection, action, and overall preservation. Thank you.